They treat you like you're a lobotomized jellyfish. They have disdain for you because they sit up there with an appeal to authority in their suits on television looking into a camera. And so there's an appeal to authority, and it must be true. Remember, it's the Republican establishment that's voting for all this draconian police state garbage for Obama. All of these Republican and mainline neocon sites are freaking out over the NDAA and over all of the different MIAC and Homeland Security reports listing patriots and libertarians and conservatives as terrorists. And then meanwhile, it's the Republican Congress that's helping write the book on all of this. It's a ruling political class who poses and acts like they're having a fight with each other, but they're not. And I know that's understood by our listeners, but the general public hasn't completely figured that out yet. This has been the first time in memory, except for Pat Buchanan to a certain extent. You saw what they did with him. Clear election fraud, saying he couldn't win, demonization. Same thing with Ron Paul. But Ron Paul is 5 times better than Pat Buchanan. And Pat's a good person overall. And so the system is pulling out every stop. So if you don't like what the system's doing, and you're sick of the status quo, and you're tired of things not changing, and you want real hope and change, Ron Paul. And I know our audience understands that, but it's so elementary. It's so simple, and it's so frustrating to see this disinformation. Now, looking at this, it is such an illustration that the top political ad companies that Huntsman and others have hired are going after Ron Paul for simply saying, yeah, Skull and Bones wields a lot of influence. Yeah, the CFR and Trilateral Commission do. I mean, both these groups have written thousands of publications. Thousands of publications. The Trilateral Commission since 1974, when David Rockefeller set it up, was Zbigniew Brzezinski. The CFR since 1922. I mean, they put out magazines, internet articles. Every 2 months, a big book comes out called Foreign Affairs, constantly calling for the end of sovereignty, world government. And so they take clips of Ron Paul talking about real things and imply that it's crazy. Now, think of the disdain that they have for the viewers. All these decades, they told you there's no New World Order. All these decades, they said the CFR doesn't exist. I remember Limbaugh saying that 15 years ago. Now he says they don't have power and makes jokes about it. But he used to say didn't exist. I remember being on talk radio in 96, 97, 98 and getting phone calls. Back then, half the callers would disagree with me on average. And saying, how dare you say there's something called the NSA and Echelon listening to our phones and grabbing data. There's no such thing. And I'd get other calls saying, I work for the government, buddy, and you're not supposed to talk about that. The public thought it was a conspiracy theory that the National Security Agency existed. Then when they admitted it existed by 2000 or so, then we had to have a debate about, no, folks, every major phone company hub has NSA rooms and floors in it, listening to everything you do. Here's the congressional funding for it going back to the 50s. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Here's the Telecommunications Act. Here's $9 billion in 1996 to put new hubs in all the facilities. Here's the standardization for cell phone manufacturers under FCC regulations that want to sell phones in the country. They've got to have a back door where they can turn it on and listen to you even when it's off. Here's the Telecommunications Act. I got calls. NSA doesn't exist, and they wouldn't spy on us. Today, does the NSA exist? Here I am saying there's a world corporate government bankrupting Europe and the U.S. through derivatives. Told you that 13, 14 years ago, exactly what they would do. Top economist on, George Humphrey and others. Told you everything that was going to unfold, and I'm still here playing childlike games with people, playing along with the childlike game of having to go, there really is a world government. There really is a mega corporate takeover system. And I still get to tune into talk radio randomly almost every week and hear somebody make fun of me, a host or callers, because I talk about this. I mean, it's disgusting. I'm talking about real things that are happening, Ron Paul is, and instead of us having a debate about, do we want a private, corporate, unelected world government that's tyrannical and oppressive and anti-free market, I have to keep having a debate with childlike people about whether it exists or not. Now, this isn't working anymore. That's why the, quote, mainstream media is falling apart and is now known for the liars they are. But still, they think this agenda works. See, that's the riddle hidden in plain view of national security. You let the government operate in secret and have unlimited funds and power, and now they're saying, we'll kill U.S. citizens, we'll secretly arrest you for national security, we're overthrowing the Bill of Rights and Constitution, which is the country. So the force you set up to supposedly protect the country is what always ends up being used in Rome and in many other civilizations and empires to bring it down. Our founding fathers, all of them, wrote articles and books and gave speeches where they talked about, ad nauseum, the United States will not fall from without. No army can stand against us. We have an armed, informed citizenry who's ready to fight. They just beaten the greatest empire in the world who'd never been defeated. A ragtag band beat them because they were willing to fight. They said, we will only fall from within. And the system menaces the public and says, Iran's going to nuke you if you don't, elect Mitt Romney or Santorum. That was the talking point on talk radio nationally and locally. And I just thought, here's Israel rumored to have 800 nuclear weapons, confirmed to have over 400, cruise missiles, submarines, ICBM delivery systems, Knesset statements about Europe better do what we want, we've got nukes. I mean, Israel's one of the biggest nuclear powers in the world with a super high-tech system, and nobody is going to mess with them. People say, oh, well, the Iranians want war right now. They're crazy. They think it's the end of the world. Iran has sat there and taken the West, Israel, the U.S., and England, blowing up their military bases in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, Bush put out a White House press release that we covered here on air saying the White House has activated 4 freedom-fighting groups out of Iraq to attack and destabilize Iran. And those groups are all, except for the Kurd group, al-Qaeda. Same al-Qaeda our government has now used to take over Libya and is now used to begin the invasion of Syria on record. And now it's in, Associated Press, Press TV, and other publications today that the United States on the Lebanese, that is the banks that have hijacked our country, headline, U.S. setting up buffer zone on Lebanon-Syrian border. So the invasion beachhead is now starting. That's what they called the invasion with U.S., British, and other troops backing up the invasion of Libya. They called it humanitarian corridors. They're setting up the humanitarian love bombs. And now Obama says he doesn't need congressional approval or even debate or even consultation. First, it's no declaration of war. Then it's congressional approval. Then it's congressional consultation. And now I don't need your stinking consultation. And now the Congress has voted, and Obama has signed it, the NDAA, to empower the president to secretly arrest or kill U.S. citizens in the U.S. or anywhere in the world, torture, you name it. Congress is just ceding all of its power. Now, again, Obama himself, this is a paradox, is a teleprompter reading puppet who's on vacation probably 10 days out of the month on average. More vacation than George W. Bush, because they're puppets. Bill Clinton was hardly ever on vacation. And when he was working, because he was such a wicked globalist that they actually trusted him to actually run things. Bill Clinton, people say the last president was Kennedy. That's not true. Kennedy was a president that didn't follow the globalist orders and tried to be president, and they killed him. Clinton is the last president, and George Herbert Walker Bush to a certain extent as well actually ran things. But Clinton was the last one to really run things. Because they're like, well, you're anti-freedom, anti-America, anti-Second Amendment, total global communist for the mega banks to destroy all competition, take over. We are going to let you run things. And Clinton would reportedly sleep about 3 hours a night and was involved in every major decision. The point is the power structure, the bureaucracy wants the executive to have dictator powers. See, our real crime is that we live in the real world. Our crime is that we know how to count to 10. Our crime is we know what's up and what's down. We know what's black and what's white. We know basically how to tie our shoelaces, and you're not supposed to know. You're just supposed to see a guy in a suit laugh at Ron Paul and go, he's worried about a global government. Ha ha. Oh, Ron Paul's worried about all these derivatives and the banks imploding us. Ha ha. It's all a planned takeover. And, of course, they have to keep ridiculing, just like they ridicule and go, they're crazy people. They think there's an agency called the NSA, and the government's listening to them. They're crazy people. Now it's all admitted. Just like we told you there was plans to use the military domestically, now it's the law, and they say they'll secretly disappear you. No more time for games, folks.